In this video, we'll be looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger. And actually, yes, we will. So, this topic is about movement. We all know what movement is. We can all make silly movements. Some of us are strong, some of us are fast. All of these things involve movement, right? So, movement is not all about muscle. We all think about, oh, he has got the strongest movement because he's got the most muscle. So muscle is involved in movement, but it's not the only thing. If we didn't have bones, we would not be able to move. So muscle is not the only factor, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So first off, here we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And we're going to be looking at his arm. So we're going to try and recreate his arm and see what actually allows him to move. Okay? Because it's not only the muscle that's so obvious to see. So what's first? First, we know that we all have bones, right? So let's put his bones together. This bone will represent this one here, his humerus. This bone is called the humerus. Then we've got two other bones in the forearm. So your forearm has two bones, okay? This one on the inside, so the one on the inside is called the ulna. And the one on the outside, so this one will be called your radius. So you got your humerus, your ulna, and your radius. Okay, these three bones make up your arm, except for your hand, because your hand has way more other bones, but we don't care about that right now. So what else do we need? We also need something to hold our bones together, right? Because if we didn't have something to hold our bones together, our bones would just fly around. They wouldn't stay together, right? So we need something to keep our bones together. So what keeps bones together? Something called ligaments, okay? Ligaments keep our bones together. They ensure that our bones don't fly around everywhere. Okay, so that's one big part done. What else? So we also need a muscle, right? So right now, this specific muscle is called our biceps. It's this muscle right here. Our biceps helps us bend our arm, right? When you flex, you bend your arm, you can see your biceps. So our biceps is called biceps because you can see it's one big muscle made up of two mini muscles. So this is one, this is another. That's why it's called biceps, because bi stands for two. Now, is this all we need? No way, right? We still have other things that we need. We still need, because does our muscle contract by itself? Do we bend our arm randomly? When you walk around, do you just randomly bend your arm, like without even thinking about it? No, right? Our brain needs to tell our muscles to bend. Okay? So we have something called motor neurons. So our brain will tell our muscles to contract through sending a signal through a neuron. A neuron is basically brain cells. It has a bunch of brain cells that come off the brain. So they basically come off your brain into your spinal cord, and then they go into your arm. So each of our muscles has their own neuron or their own motor neuron. It's called motor neuron because a motor neuron is a type of neuron or a type of cell that causes muscles to contract, to move like a motor. Okay, so bear in mind, all of our muscles have their own neurons, okay? So we're only caring about the bicep right now. So it comes off of the brain to your bicep. And when you say, okay, now I want to contract my arm, your brain will send that signal to your bicep and it will contract, okay? Now, is this all we need? Are we missing anything? Let me give you a hint. If you rub two bricks together for long enough, what will happen? It will make a really, really loud sound, right? And over time, the brick will get worn away. The friction will cause the bits and pieces to break off slowly and slowly until eventually you have no more brick left, right? So that's the same with bone. When we bend, when you move your joint, so you move your bones and slide them past each other because you're bending your arm, you're rubbing them against each other. And just like brick, you're wearing them away. You're eroding your bone. So we need something to prevent that from happening. So otherwise you would have no bones left after like a year of living. So here we have something called cartilage. Cartilage is like a material that is at the end of your bones that protects them from being worn away. It creates a very smooth surface. Okay, so here we can see Now, if these two bones rub against each other, the surface is super smooth. So it will be very slippery, meaning the bones aren't actually touching each other directly. It's the cartilage rubbing against each other. And cartilage is very, very slippery and smooth, so nothing gets worn away. Therefore, you can live a long life before you start having trouble. Okay, so we got the cartilage, we got the ligaments, and we have muscle. And we have your brain, which sends a motor neuron to your muscle to contract. There's one last key word we need to know, and that is this. This is a tendon. This is not your muscle, but it's attached to your muscle. So a tendon is something that attaches your muscle to your bone. So we have a ligament. Ligaments attach bone to bone, and then we have tendon, which attaches muscle to bone. So by that logic, when you contract your muscle, right? So when you contract your muscle, it gets a bit tight. It gets a bit smaller. You're contracting it. You're making it smaller. And as you're contracting it, your bone will move because your bone is attached to the tendon. So right now your muscle's relaxed, and as soon as it contracts, it will get smaller, and this tendon will be attached to the bone. And as it's getting smaller, it's pulling on the bone. And so the bone will basically move. So I'll show you. So now it's going to bend a bit. See? Now it's a bit bent. And if you contract it even more, the bone will move even more until eventually it's completely bent, right? Okay, so that's how a muscle causes your arm to bend. Okay, it contracts, gets tighter and smaller, and then as it's getting smaller, the tendon is pulling on your bone, and that's causing your bone to move into the specific direction the muscle is pulling it to. Okay? Okay, so this is the basics of muscle movement. Now, one more key word that we need to know is something called joint. What is a joint? So a joint specifically is a place where two bones meet. Where do the two bones meet? Around here, right? So a joint is just a place where two bones meet. But a joint is pretty complicated because a joint can involve many things. So what can you see in this joint? I can see tendon, muscle, ligaments, cartilage, bone. You can see so many things, right? So many things are involved in the joint. Although the joint is a pretty simple definition, it's where two bones meet, a joint is made up of many structures, as I just mentioned, okay? And we're going to be talking about different types of joints soon. But this is the basic idea. This is why you can move. The stronger your muscle or the bigger your muscle, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the more weight you can move or the faster you can move. But you still need your bones and ligaments and tendons. Otherwise, this wouldn't be possible. Okay. So here, I didn't want to put this on the previous slide because it's just a lot of words. This is for you to look at. Basically what I just said, I put in words here. I defined it so you can slowly take a look and see if you understand it. I labeled, so basically this is gray, right? I tried to color code it. So that's a ligament. It's gray, the color. And here I put the image in gray. So hopefully you can pretty easily match up and compare the real definition to each other. A ligament is not really gray, by the way. A ligament is white. But because the background is white, if I made the ligament white, it would be really, really difficult to see. So bear in mind, a ligament is white in reality. Same with cartilage. Okay, I hope this made sense so far. Just bear in mind, bone has a lot of purposes, okay? So just bear in mind that you know these. Okay, we just mentioned joints, okay? This is a joint. Where else do you have joints in your body? Do you only have an elbow joint or do you have other joints as well? Yes, we have way more other joints. So I'm going to list a few here. I'll show you a video here of a few. So in this video, we can see I circled a whole bunch of joints. Your shoulder joint, and you can see this is only bones for now. There's no ligaments. So right now, in this video, you can see no ligaments, meaning it's only bones. Okay, only bones. So right now, in reality, if this is a real image, the body would fall apart because there's nothing holding the bones together. It's just bones. Because fairly soon, I'll show you, I'm going to add cartilage, and you'll be able to see, I'm going to add ligaments, and ligaments actually hold these bones together. Right now, there's no ligaments. Okay, see, right now, I'm adding ligaments. Now I added ligaments, and I'll zoom in, and you'll be able to see now at all the joints there's a bunch of ligaments holding the bones together. You see, it's kind of white grayy. Okay, this allows your bones to be kept together. Now your body won't fall apart. But still, in this position, you can't move anything yet. So when I add muscle, now in that position where I just showed you, muscle can allow for the movement to happen. Okay. Now, coming back to this image that we created, that we made, a joint. So I told you a joint is pretty complicated because you can see it's made up of so many different things, right? So here I'm zooming in. We're looking at the joint in a bit more detail because you need to know how to label this for a test or something like that. Okay, maybe you're a bit confused about what this image means. So I put another image of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we're basically looking at this. We're looking at this, his arm in this position. His humerus, the long bone here, and then the two bones in his forearm here, okay? So this would be his humerus, the long bone, and then we'd have the two other bones, the ulna and the radius, here, okay? So we're looking at a bent version of his arm. Okay, a lot of these structures you may know already, because again, they're color-coded with the definitions I put above. So hopefully it makes sense, because I don't want to put too many words, it makes it pretty distracting. So here we have what? A muscle. Here we have what? Also a muscle. This is your biceps. So this is this one, okay? And this is your triceps, okay? The back one. They are two muscles, and they do the exact opposite job. The biceps does what? It bends your arm. So when this muscle contracts, the arm bends. When this muscle contracts, the arm straightens, because you can see if this muscle contracts, it will pull on this bone, causing the bone to want to come down or straighten. The arm will want to straighten. So we can see they do the exact opposite job. This is called antagonistic muscle pairs. Antagonistic means they do the opposite things, right? So they antagonize each other. They do exactly what the other one doesn't want to do. Okay, so biceps will flex the arm, and triceps will extend your arm. Antagonistic muscle pairs. It's like in movies, you have a protagonist and an antagonist. A protagonist tries to save everybody, and an antagonist is the evil one. They both have opposite job, so they are antagonistic. They have opposite jobs. Okay, what is this one here? This is your bone, right? As I mentioned. What do you think this blue is that is on the edge of the bone? This is cartilage. This is the thing allowing the bones to not touch each other directly. It allows for a smooth surface and for cushioning. So when you suddenly, let's say you fall onto your arm, these two bones will then smash into each other, right? When you fall onto your arm, you extend your arm out and you land on it. When you do that, these bones will smash into each other. But luckily, we have cartilage, and cartilage is also like a bit of a cushion. So when your arms smash against each other, the bones don't actually directly hit each other, it's the cartilage that hits each other. And it is made up of a cushioning material to protect your bones. Okay, so that's cartilage, the blue. Again, it matches with color, light blue. And then we have this gray thing here. This is ligament. So this is basically the same thing. That gray, this light gray, is the same as this. It's ligament. It's holding the bones together. You can see bone attached to the other bone. Okay, lastly, you can see we have this dark gray thing. This dark gray thing, and then the space in between the bones. What the heck is this? So this is the tricky part. The dark gray thing is called the synovial membrane. Okay, this sounds scary, but it's quite simple, so no worries. And then the space in between is called synovial fluid. Synovial membrane is basically something that, similar to a ligament, it holds the bones together and it separates the space in between the bones from the outside world. So it makes sure that all this fluid inside here, all this fluid, the synovial fluid between the joints, between the bones, can't escape and go outside of your body. It makes sure that it stays in between here. It's like a capsule. It holds everything in place. So what is synovial fluid? So synovial fluid is a transparent liquid, so you can't see it. It's like see-through, like water. And what it does is, it's very, very, very slippery, like oil. So just like your cartilage, that helps to make the movement smooth. So it does a very similar job to cartilage. It makes everything smooth, so when you move your arm, you don't hear that many noises. and it's pretty smooth. It doesn't rub against each other. So it has a pretty similar job to cartilage. Okay. We are almost there. So this has been a lot of information, but so far so good. So let's look at the next aspect. So you can see normally we can't see the inside of the joint. Normally in your body it would be covered with this capsule and all these ligaments. So this is how it really looks like. But in this image above, I'm basically showing you how the inside looks like. So you wouldn't normally be able to see this because normally it's covered by a bunch of ligaments and a capsule. So this is how it would look like if we open it up. Okay, just bear that in mind. This is not how it really looks like from the outside. You need to open it up to be able to see all this. Okay, so why is biceps called biceps and triceps called triceps? Biceps because it's basically one big muscle that is made up of two muscles. You can see one muscle here, and they're attached in the middle. That's why it's called biceps, bi for two. Now triceps means three. So by logic, it must mean it's three muscles. I mean, it's one big muscle made up of three muscles. So let's see if that's true. So here we have this video. So you can see here, this is the triceps. We're looking at the body from the back. And there I deleted one of the triceps. There I deleted two of the triceps. And there the last one. So you can see it's one big muscle with three components, with three mini muscles. Okay, so far so good. Almost done, I think. So you need to know two joint types. There are way many more joint types, but you only need to know two. So far we only looked at the elbow, right? The elbow is called a hinge joint. It is similar to your knee. Because it's called a hinge joint because it's like a door. You know, a door, when you open a door, it can only open one way and close the same way. You can't move a door in a different direction. That's the same as your elbow. So when you bend your arm, when you bend and straighten your arm, that's the only way your elbow can move. It can't move side to side or anything like that. Okay, that's because it looks like this. The top bone represents this one. The bottom bone, so this one, represents this. And you can imagine if you put these two pieces together and you try and move it around, it can only move in one direction, forward or backwards, right? That's the same with your knees, only forwards or backwards. Okay, this is the normal scenario. This is called a hinge joint, reminding you of a door. Now the other cool joints that we have is your shoulder and your hip joint. You can see it's called a ball and socket joint because it's got like a ball and then a socket. And you can, so it looks like this. The top bone, so this one here, would be the socket, and then the bottom bone with the ball on it is called the ball. And when you put these two pieces together, you can try and move them, and they would move in so many different directions, around in circles, forward and backward, so many directions. That's called a ball and socket joint. Okay, that's the same with your hip joint. Now, you can see the one can do very little movements, but it's a pretty strong joint because it's not so flexible. Anything that's flexible is unstable. That's why your shoulder gets injured so often, because you can move it in so many different directions. If you accidentally move it too much in one direction, you can easily harm it. Whereas with the other two joints, you can't move them in that many directions, so it can't get harmed easily at all. Okay, so these are the only two you need to know, but you do need to bear in mind there is other ones, other kinds of joints. These are not the only two, but for you, I think this is enough to know. Okay, last thing. This is a very small part in the book, so don't worry too much about this. It's called exoskeleton and muscles. So we humans have bones, right? And our muscles attach to our bones, and that allows us to move, okay, like I just talked about. Some insects don't have bones. So if you look at their structure, so we're zooming into this thing's leg, you can see it has no bones. It just has, it's like a pipe. So how does it move? It can move because the muscles attached to the exoskeleton. The exoskeleton is essentially the bone version of insects because they don't actually have bones. They just have a shaft or a pipe-like structure. Now you can see the muscles, they attach at this joint to two places. And just how we have antagonistic muscles, so muscles that do the opposite things, so does insects. So when they attach to each other and the muscle extends or flexes, it can move the leg in a different direction. So when this one flexes, you can imagine the leg will become straight. Whereas this one, if it flexes, the leg will bend. Okay, so you can try and imagine this. It's quite difficult to imagine, but anyways, this is quite a small part of the book. So the main aspect was how it relates to humans or mammals. Okay, so I hope this made sense.